And so here we are. We understand it because we've been struggling with it. I mean, what more understanding do you have other than an intimate, painful, defeating struggle? And so we know.
Food Addiction is a podcast that explores the disease of food addiction and presents the solution. We interview professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease of food addiction as a substance use disorder. And we interview individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss how they did it. Esther Helga Goodman-Stotier was motivated to change careers after she recovered from food addiction by opening a food addiction treatment center and the INFACT School, the International School for Food Addiction Counseling and Treatment. It is the world's first and only evidence-based training for counselors, nutritionists, therapists, and medical professionals that provides training in the effective treatment of food addiction as a substance use disorder. Students receive an internationally recognized credential as a Certified Food Addiction Professional, CFAP. Check out the website at infactschool.com, INFACT school.com, for more information on obtaining the certification in proven food addiction recovery programs. Listen to these episodes as we discuss the problem and the solution to food addiction. I'm Susan Branscombe, the host of the INFACT School podcast, Food Addiction, the Problem and the Solution. On today's episode, we have two guests from COR Retreat, a food addiction treatment center in Minneapolis. We have with us Nancy Kaley and Joni Osip. Welcome.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, glad you're here. Going to introduce you with your bios, and then we'll get into some questions. Nancy Kaley is the program director and facilitator of the COR Retreat. Since participating in COR in 2014, she has maintained a 100-pound weight loss and experienced improved health, freedom from food obsession, and renewed personal empowerment. Through practicing the principles she learned at COR, she has sustained peace and neutrality in her relationship with food and deepened her sobriety. Before joining COR, Nancy worked more than 20 years as a licensed alcohol and drug counselor in outpatient, residential, and co-occurring treatment settings, addressing both mental health and chemical dependency. Her work is grounded in the 12-step model of recovery, integrating physical, emotional, spiritual dimensions of healing while supporting individuals in building lasting recovery. And Joni Osip is a co-facilitator and proud alumna of COR, of the food addiction treatment program we mentioned, based in Minnesota. In 2023, she earned her certification through the INFACT School, which is the owner of this podcast, food addiction treatment and training program, deepening her expertise and supporting her clients on their recovery journeys. Joni is passionate about helping clients achieve sustainable freedom and long-term recovery within the food addiction community. She has an advanced degree in nursing and is a graduate of Michigan State and the University of Minnesota. So again, welcome both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. I listened to other podcasts of yours, Nancy, and there are three things that you agree with Esther Helga on, of the INFACT School, who heads the INFACT School, owner of the podcast, is food addiction exists, it is real, treatment is necessary, and it involves a 12-step recovery program. So tell me about COR Retreat, the treatment. How do you take in clients? And as Joni and I know, I'm getting my certification. How do you assess clients? What is the practice during the 5-day retreat?
So considering that we're a brief program and we don't, at this point, we're not working with insurance. We don't really have much of there's not much of an onus to assess. People register with basic information. I certainly talk to them. I contact them after they've registered to talk with them a little bit, welcome them to COR, and make sure they're appropriate. And I'd have to say, in the time I've been doing it, by the time we sign up for something like COR, I think we're appropriate for the program. I think it's, I think that a lot of people find us by Googling food addiction. If you're Googling food addiction, you're struggling. And you've at least made a leap that this could be an addiction. and which is an important leap, an important corner to turn, I think. And you've maybe heard about it from someone who's gone through and is experiencing, a better life and the freedom that we can find in food recovery. So once someone signs up, I encourage them that I know they're probably anxious, but commit to yourself to show up with an open mind, an open heart, and we will support you and teach you and help you in any way we can. Meet you where you're at.
Yeah, meet you where you're at, but don't leave you there. Somebody said one time.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So the people that come in, I assume that the majority are people that are, we know that food addiction can be a symptom of obesity, but we don't necessarily say that. And so how do you help them as they realize that, food addiction is a brain disease and it's not their fault, and all the dieting failures it's not part of, you kind of turn them around. Do you have people just coming in looking for weight loss and you get them to realize what's going on? Joni, I see you nodding your head.
Definitely. I think that's the number one reason people sometimes show up. And then through the process of even the first night when we start talking about food and addiction, I think light bulbs start going off like, ooh. Wouldn't you agree, Nancy? In the evening program, the first night, we have them say who they are, why they're there, and something interesting about themselves. And so just in that little introduction, people let us know they've been trying their whole lives to fix this. They've been struggling in some way, shape, or form. And so we get an idea right away, what we're talking about. And then we launch into the first 3 steps very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know that those are, we're powerless over this, right? And we have to find something. We'll talk about the spirituality piece of this, but I think you each are food addicts, alcoholic in your case, Nancy, where I couldn't have done this on my own. And so we know that there is something beyond us, whatever you call that has rescued us from dying, right?
Yeah, we also have at least 2 volunteers every month that help the people coming in. They greet them, and they're COR alum, and so they take some time when we first sit down together to talk about how they got to COR and what their experience has been since. Oftentimes they stay and share dinner with us. So they sit with, I think that helps, as well as Joni and I sharing a little bit. And I would say, as you said, Susan, that one of the most important, vital things for us to understand is it's not our fault. There's not something wrong with us. We use the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, and with specific focus on Dr. Silkworth describing the alcoholic. And I think it just parallels our journey we have a phenomenon of craving. That it's not willpower, that we probably have willpower we exercise in a lot of areas of our life. We're successful, we're intelligent, we're strong, we get stuff done. With this particular thing, there's this physical craving we have. And for some of us, from the time we can remember food. And for some of us, that's developed along the way. And I think, Joni, both you and I, throughout the retreat, I will continue to go back to that, to take the shame out.
I think we spend more time on step 1, don't you think, than 2 and 3,
so
because
important.
It's so important that they understand the disease of food addiction and how it's not their fault and there is a way out.
That it really is a thing. And the we, we talk about the we from the first night. We talk about how there's so many people that don't understand that it's a thing. Like, I'll just say, well, that's food addiction. It's not real. And so here we are. We understand it because we've been struggling with it. I mean, what more understanding do you have than other than an intimate, painful, defeating struggle? And so we know. And so in the 12 steps, the first word is we. So right away we say, know who your we is. Joni has a twin sister. How close could you be? Not her we. She's her sister. She loves her. Your we is people who have this and understand, and we're the ones who will understand. And it's okay if society doesn't, if your spouse doesn't, if your family doesn't. And so I think that helps us come together to say, we know that this is real. We've been living it and battling it. We've tried everything.
We know that, as you three know, you've recovered from this. You have lived experience, so that's got to be helpful to people. But this is not about the weight, and it's not about willpower, right? I mean, I didn't know how to stop once I started, and I was very good at other things. I was very disciplined on diets, but I always gained it back. So what would you say to those people coming in? You just come off of 5-day retreat. Sounds like it was powerful. Tell me about what you saw there.
I think what usually happens is, like I said earlier, people come in with the thought that this is a weight loss program. And in the first couple days, they start to hear about the disease concept. We'll go over the questions that Overeaters Anonymous has. Are you a food addict, or are you compulsive overeater? And have them answer as a group. And, some of them have tried. They've been to different OA factions. They've been to OA How, OA 90 Day. And they did weighing and measuring, and it still didn't work. And I think what we try to drive home, and Nancy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but how important connection is. Like, a lot of times there hasn't been the connection that we absolutely need to get better. That was the key for me, is understanding that I needed to do the whole program, no screwing around. Whatever they tell me, I'm going to do it, and that I need to connect with people.
Yeah. There's a lot of isolation in this disease, isn't there? I mean, how many times, and maybe you've done the same thing, where you sit home alone and you're like, nobody knows about this. I'm eating, I'm binging, and there's shame in it. And
so much shame. Much shame.
And so many of us were rugged individuals throughout our whole life for different reasons, right? We had these reasons why we had to be a certain way, and I got to fix this myself. And to actually start to say to somebody, can you help me? I don't have this. I think it's the key to recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. Nancy mentioned that in a podcast I heard, is the biggest key to somebody recovering is the willingness to finally surrender to the fact that this is a disease, that I am powerless. And when they surrender and they really become willing, like, I've tried everything else, or maybe not tried everything else, but they're willing, right? That's a big part of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I talk about willingness is not wantingness. We at COR, we're going to teach them first meal within a few hours of arriving. Well, they get there at 4:30. At 6:15, we're sitting down to an abstinent meal, whole, unprocessed food, no sweeteners of any kind, no flour, no sugar. And we're going to have them weigh their food and measure their food. And, I personally spent 8 years on and off in Overeaters Anonymous. And at that time, with over 25 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, teaching recovery as a alcohol and drug counselor. And I'm telling you what, I was so stubborn about weighing and measuring my food. And now I kind of laugh, because I was going to Overeaters Anonymous. I was carrying 100 extra pounds. And I just chafed at the suggestion that I do that. And then I talk about this at COR. It's actually boundaries. And I can show the picture of myself that I show them when I came into COR at 265 pounds. And I can say, I need boundaries around food. And it's what I've been searching for with every diet and every time I went to OA. But that idea can, to us, feel like such a restriction. And that's the denial and the fear, right? Of of restricting, because we've tried to restrict, we can't. So they're going to eat that meal within, the first little bit of time they're there. And willingness is not wantingness. We understand you don't want to. We understand that you think this is ridiculous, that it's crazy. Will you try? Could you try and see what happens?
Every time we gather, we say a little prayer before we go to our meal. And it's the set aside prayer. Like, set aside everything you think you know about life, recovery, food, the whole thing, and just be open, because people come in with preconceived notions. I don't eat that. I can't eat that. I can't eat that. And then some of them are legit if they're not eating sugar and crunchy, salty things. Like, that was my problem. But a lot of them have stopped eating carbs or limiting carbs. And we try to do some education about, we try to balance this out with really good carbs. We want your blood sugars to be nice and stable. We don't want to have any peaks and valleys, because that's where cravings come. So please set aside all that and just give this a shot. Give this a shot.
Be open and willing. And some of us are addicts, and we're stubborn cusses,
Oh,
aren't we?
we are.
It's like, we can't tell us anything. But, you have to be desperate, right? And
You do.
One of the things you talked about was community and how important that is. The departure from isolation, when you realize that other people are doing the same thing you're doing and you're not alone. But then the community within that group, that they connect and they bond, they stay supporting of each other, and it's a fellowship, right?
Right. So when after somebody attends COR, we have follow-up sessions every Wednesday and every Sunday, and there's no additional cost. We just get together, and so that's how you really develop your we. I mean, the small group that goes through, they stay in touch, and they sometimes form a chat group or WhatsApp, and they talk and support each other. But then we have these topics on Wednesday that we talk about, so you can start seeing faces, get to trust them. Maybe you'll make a phone call and reach out.
Yeah. I love it. And you mentioned, Nancy, the weighing and measuring. It sounds restrictive, but frankly, it's freedom. I know exactly what I need to eat to weigh my normal weight now. Now, finally, I know. And I was a volume eater, so I have to weigh and measure my food, right? And sounds like you're the same.
Yeah, and we just, Joni and I will stand at the line when we serve our food up, and I always joke around about I'm at the fat stand, and so I'm at the end of the line with 2 healthy fats. And, that's something that some of us, the set aside, as Joni's saying, believe we should be avoiding or limiting. I tell you, there's nothing like putting 2 ounces of avocado on someone's plate and saying, see, that's the right amount. You get to feel good about eating that. And Joni and I are encouraging them each time that this is the right amount of food, that it's the safe amount of food, and to keep trying, just to be open and see what your body says back to you. And, we're certainly not a medical program, and I don't make any medical claims. The type 2 diabetics that come into COR that are monitoring their blood sugars within 2 meals, so within the first 24 hours, truly report pretty remarkable leveling out of their blood sugars. People with inflammation within a short time.
They do. They'll hold their phone up to their Dexcom scanner and say, "Oh my gosh, it's 160, it's 140." It's so fun.
Food is medicine. Yeah, we know that.
So we just encourage them, to give it a chance, to see what's happening. And this is the right amount of food. It's a safe amount of food for volume eaters. A lot of times what we'll do is restrict and then binge. So we're not used to sitting down at a table 3 times a day having a meal. So a lot of people, I don't eat breakfast. We always kind of joke and say, try to find a nutritionist that's going to sign off on, I just skip breakfast. Or we go back to, how would you feed a healthy child? If you were feeding a little girl, would you have her skip breakfast? And so that, and we COR is a relatively short amount of time. It's amazing how even in that short time that can settle. Someone can say this really does feel pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fat doesn't make you fat. our bodies need fat, and that's what I had to learn. I eat three times a day. I've got a lot of fat in my diet, and I'm at a normal weight. So yeah, it's true. I want to get into your personal stories. You both have lived experience in food addiction recovery, and now you're working in the field to help other food addicts and giving back. So some of our favorite guests are the ones that have lived experience and working in the field. Nancy, I understand you worked as a addiction counselor, alcohol and drug. You were an alcoholic like me. You got sober years ago. And then you did what I did, what we say, switch seats on the Titanic, and turn to food. Have you ever heard that one? I bet you
arranging.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going down. We're just going down with a different substance.
Exactly.
Joni hasn't heard that one.
No, I haven't. I love it.
Yeah. Alcohol and food. So those were my things. And I got rid of alcohol using food. So yeah, let's talk about what would you say about your experience, what you learned, being addicted to alcohol, recovered, and then kind of getting to the point where you realized that you needed, some abstinence from food and recover in that way as a start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say that the food one has the sugar and food addiction. I'd say sugar as a kid. The first memory I have is about candy. And that I'm going to get candy with some cousins to the store where you get a penny a piece. And, I'm so excited. And that's the memory. And that was my childhood. Nancy, that's enough. Nancy, that's my mom, my family around me always my brother and sister didn't have it. I always get to say too, they didn't make a decision at some point not to have it. It was, we were raised in the same household with the same food being served. And I just had that craving that Silkworth describes, the phenomenon of craving. A little bit, I want more. I can't stop thinking about it. How am I going to get it? I'm going to eat all my Halloween candy. And now I'm going to start on my sister's because she's not eating it like I do. And I was a chubby girl. And so that definitely affects you. You at a young age, start being very self-conscious about weight, comparing yourself to others. And I think, like I said, the most important corner to turn is that you decide at a young age something's wrong with you in comparison to others, and that it needs to be about self-control. That there's no way for a family around that person to understand that it isn't about just stop eating so much of it. There's no way they can understand that it's a craving. That, my family would have never been able to know to take out all the stuff that causes craving for me. And so I that was part of my story from the time I was a little girl on, and then enter alcohol at the age that alcohol enters, and cigarettes and boys and all the other things that you can be addicted to. Bulimia started for me in my teens, and the eating, just my food addiction, sugar addiction was present throughout my alcoholism for about 7 years that I drank until I got sober at a really young age, 21. And so it was present, but took a little bit of a backseat because the drinking was more prevalent. And I think too, my weight was manageable during that time. Because you're adolescent, you're in a young body, you've got the ability to starve yourself for a couple days and drop 5 pounds. But always the obsession, always felt fat. The feeling of always something's wrong with my body, I'm fat. That preoccupation and obsession we have and the shame that it carries, and the comparison to other people. And so I got sober, and I remember when I was first sober, my remedy was certainly smoking a lot of cigarettes and eating candy. I mean, it was like I left treatment and went to the store and got candy. It was like, boom, boom, lockstep, here we go. And then I spent over 20 years, with that addiction kind of raging. And it's fascinating to me even now how I could be so educated and believe so strongly in my sobriety and still have that blind spot about what the treatment for this might be. And like I said, when I went to OA thinking, don't limit me, and wanting to hold on to white flour, just to flour. And so I spent the next 20 some years battling it. And it took me, when I went to COR, I needed detox. I needed to be away from I needed to be separated, the alcoholics that we know, when the beautiful thing fell together, they needed to be separated from alcohol to have clear thinking. And I needed that total abstinence for the craving to go. And when I left COR Retreat in 2014, I had never experienced that freedom from craving. It was profound to me. I would go to bed at night and I just couldn't believe that I had gone through a day and it wasn't a struggle and I wasn't restricting and I wasn't trying not. It was this relief, this profound, this intense relief from that craving. And I just the way things have unfolded, that I'm now able to, take the years that I had of facilitating groups, and that there was this opportunity, because when I went through COR, the facilitator, very similar story to mine. I got so much good stuff at COR Retreat. I left and I was able to stay abstinent, to stay in recovery, to stay active in my program. And then when that opportunity came to step in, it was like universe said, how about this path, Nancy? And I it couldn't have been brighter for me to be able to do what Joni and I get to do.
Yeah. What you're talking about is, what others experience in this addiction. And that is, what would life be like without focusing on what I'm eating, what I'm not eating, and my weight? Which I think you did for years. I did for years, where, just like there's freedom. And it starts with taking the foods out from your diet, whether it's sugar or flour, crunchy, salty things like Joni was talking about, taking them out. And then at some point, the cravings go away. You've withdrawn from that and the toxicity, and you have neutrality. That stuff is no longer my food, right? Talk about that. Joni, tell me your story. Let's go to your story.
I can be brief because a lot of it is like Nancy's. I came from a family of 6 girls, and I was the youngest with my twin sister. And there was never any restriction with food, and it was plentiful, lots of sweets. Look forward to the holidays and Christmas and with all the things. And I remember an underlying current, perhaps, of anxiety in my life, even as a young age, and maybe that feeling of not quite good enough. I tell Nancy, or I've told it at COR, that when I was like 7, I was jealous of a little girl in school who was tiny and petite and had a grandma, and I didn't. And so that pervasive feeling of not being good enough or not feeling enough, and food was just a great match to make me feel better. And I remember my first, at age 12 was my first real binge there. I could not stop. And I started to diet. My first diet was around 12. And then in high school, bulimia, just like Nancy talked about. And then I went to OA in 1980. Because I saw an ad in the newspaper, because it described me. Do you eat when you're not hungry? Are you compulsive with food? Have you been on multiple diets? So I went. But I don't think I was ready. I wasn't ready to put it all down. And I don't even know if I knew what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't understand the steps. But I just kept going back because it was beautiful, and there were people who had my addiction, and I loved them. And I did stop with my bulimia. And then I left for a while, had a child, and still struggled paying way, doing all the stuff that we do. And I came back in 2006 and knew I had to do something different, but still struggled. I knew I had to work the steps better. And I went to OA 90 day, did a lot of different things where I had have some period of abstinence, but then I'd pick up again. And I don't think I ever found sustainable recovery there. So when I finally said to somebody, I'm not doing well, they could tell I was getting bigger. But I finally said it out loud, like, I need help. And she recommended COR Retreat. And so I sort of tucked that away. And then during COVID, I was working at a job that was not a good suit for me and feeling more, less than, not doing enough. I'm not good at this. And all of a sudden, COR Retreat popped in my head, which I think was God. But because I'm a nurse and I know food and I know nutrition and I've been in OA for so long, I was like, I should have this. I should have this. And I know it was God who finally said to me, alcoholics go to treatment. Why shouldn't you? And then I was like, okay. And when I got there, it was like, all right, I've done this before. What's going to be different? And the woman who was in my chair that I sit in now said, just do today what you did yesterday. Simple. And I thought, okay, I can do that. And the other thing that was really important for me, Susan, is I always said, I can't meditate. I can't sit still. I can't. But this time I left with the attitude, I'm going to just try. I'm going to do it all. So I sat for 10 minutes at the beginning and my brain was racing and I would just pray for people. I was willing. I was just willing. And the food plan was something I could live with. It eliminated the triggers. And it was just like Nancy talked about. There was that freedom. It wasn't screaming at me. The cupboards weren't screaming at me. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, we interview a lot of people on the podcast, and there are people that work in this industry that don't always subscribe to the 12-step approach to recovery. Worked for you guys. It worked for me. You promote it at COR. Esther's a big believer in it. I'd like each of you to address 12-step recovery. And for people who aren't familiar with it, I mean, there's plenty of stuff online. It's how I got sober, how I got abstinent. I couldn't have done it without it. But there's steps 1, 2, and 3. I can't do this. There is a higher power. Let me turn my will and my life over to that higher power. And people kind of get blocked by the God part of this, right? And there are other programs out there, Smart Recovery, Bright Line Eating, so there are other ways to do this. But what would you say? I'd like each of you to talk about the 12 steps and maybe take some time and talk about that as it relates to you and then your clients.
Okay. So the 12 steps is considered a spiritual program of action. And one of a really important thing that I learned years ago was that the word spiritual has a Latin root, which means to aspire, which then means to breathe. And so one of the things that I like to talk about when people come in is that this is as personal as your own breath. Right. And so what we're wanting to do is we want this internal shift, this internal, I guess, breath or ease to come. And that I think most of us agree when we're sitting together at COR or wherever, we don't have that when we're in the food, I guess I could say. Also, the 12 steps was written at a time when the word God was universe. And so one of the things I think that almost anybody can connect with is God is love. And if God is love, turning things over can most easily be in human form. And I always joke around about I watch my granddaughter on Fridays, and I'm in the kitchen, and they have a bag of corn chips on top of the fridge. And I start thinking, because I have this kind of addicted brain, well, maybe corn chips are my starch today, which they're not. And I know this. And I'm 11. I'm over 10 years into this, and I've committed to recovery. But I'll still go. Yeah. And so I'll take a picture of those corn chips, and I'll text them to Joni, and I'll say, corn chips are not my starch for lunch today. And that is almost it's the simplest example I can say of turning something over to God. If Joni loves me. If God is love, I'm going to reach out to a friend. I'm going to do the human connection way of having a higher power in my life. That's a power greater than me. If I'm left alone with corn chips for any amount of time, over time, without connecting, without working my program in some simple way, I'm powerless over them, which then we're looping back to the first step. And that the importance of recognizing what powerless is, what it feels like, that it's not our fault, and that we won't win. I guess I always say, when I was in the last part of my food addiction, I would use all the willpower I had to get through my day at work. And now I get home and I put on my big stretchy pants and I'm on the couch. And I had a son who was in wrestling, and he was wrestling in a match a block away at the high school. And I'm telling myself it's okay because his dad is there. And this is not the mom that I really truly am. And it looks like I'm choosing food over my son. I'm not. I would never choose food over my son. I am powerless. I've lost the power of choice in that. And so looping back to that powerless, and then the idea that I cannot do this alone. God is as simple as love. Look around me at who might love me. My we needs to be my we. Once in a while, it can be someone else. We can say, I'm not eating those chips. And maybe we have accountability with a sibling or something at the cabin or whatever. But mostly that's going to be my we. And so I really try to bring the concept of God down to that really what lives right here in your life. Always take that breath. And then to maybe point out the parts of the 12-step programs where it talks about God is what you need it to be. God is, or the spiritual piece of this is what is personal to you. To find that, it needs to be that internal shift. And that's and also the mental shift, right? The mental idea that we start to understand this isn't my fault. I didn't ask for this. And Silkworth also describes that in that beautiful doctor's opinion, where he says, what's necessary is a psychic change.
Psychic change for sure. Yeah, Joni, I want to hear,
Yep.
I'm going to come back to the 12 steps after step 3 and talk about causes and conditions. But Joni, go ahead.
So just how the 12 steps in my life and recovery, what I think. I think for sure I knew from the beginning that something was wrong with me. It was great to learn that it was a disease and that if I could avoid the alcoholic foods that they talk about in doctor's opinion, that'd be great. But I struggled with the whole God thing because I grew up in a punitive religion and I couldn't connect. That was another way I never felt good enough. And I had to figure out something else. So I've been on a quest for a long time trying to figure that out. And what I have come to learn, which is step 3, came to believe, or step 2, came to believe, is that, like Nancy talked about, that God is community, it's connection. We watch this wonderful tape at COR, and it talks about going from I can do it by myself to I need others. And if we move along that continuum, our sobriety is guaranteed. And I truly believe that the more I connect with people, and I have to do all the other steps. I got to clean the house, figure out where my character defects. I got to start praying to be less controlling, less fearful, less frightened. That's all essential part of the program. Clear the wreckage of the past, live in the now. This is something I do at COR all the time. Stay here. Because I'll get frozen thinking about something that I have to do 2 weeks from now. And I have to bring myself back. And I do that with the people at the program. And I still pray and meditate and I talk to God. Like, you got to help. Like today with the podcast, it's like, you got to help me here. I'm so nervous. I'm going to get us through this and little things like that. And it works out. And it's like, yeah, man, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, your work, I can tell you're working this program, and I am too. It's like once we get through steps 1, 2, and 3, and this is what I want you to talk about with the 12-step recovery, we get to what the big book of AA talks about, causes and conditions. Like, why were we eating like that? Yeah, there was an allergy of the body, mental obsession. We can't control it. But why were we eating? Why did we why did we eat this food? And there are people in our lives that maybe we, haven't handled well. We have fears, we have resentments, we get to character defects, like what in me is disturbed, the whole thing. And so I'd like to hear 4 through 9 and then 11, 10, 11, 12. Let's spend a little time on that. So go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, well, we do at COR Retreat, we do have a retreat that's called Encore. The name is clever. And that's where people can come back. COR alum can come back. And then that's where we do talk about steps 4 through 12. We have people actually do a 4-step, which is in the steps, it's called a searching and fearless moral inventory. And I believe it's really where we look at what are the relationships in our life and what isn't working about them and what we bring to that. And it's called character defects. That can be a strong term for people. I do understand after years, 37 years in the program myself, why some of the 12-step language is off-putting. I really do. And I do know that people find freedom in other 12 steps. If someone finds freedom in a different way, I think I'm going to say it's one, I just would honor that truly. This is a mentor that I had early in my career would kind of shrug and he'd say, well, it works best for most people, so give it a try. And he would just not try to say it's the only thing you're going to die without it. You just give it a try and see. And so step 4 is about looking at what my part is, where in control issues, we do a lot around step 3 and that the idea that we do need to let go of control of what goes on around us. And so we go into step 4, we look at that. We actually have people at Encore do a 5th step. We have people come in, their sponsor, or else we sit with them and do a 5th step, which is where they get to talk about that. And then we look at, do you really want things to change in your life, in your relationships? Do we really want to change? Am I ready to let go of some of this stuff that I've held on to? If it's resentments from the past, if it's, again, we're always going to say, if you have trauma, please see someone about that. We work the steps. We need to stay sober with our food in order to address that stuff in a way that doesn't, I guess just to stay emotionally safe in life in general. And so we get through steps 4 or 5. We talk about the change that comes with step 6 and 7. And then we're going to talk about how to make amends, which amend means to change. How can I show up differently? I always laugh about how my oldest son is now married with a granddaughter. And based the work I've done in the 12 steps and understanding how I've shown up in the past, the number of things I don't say about that granddaughter and what we did when you were babies and what you might want to do and the suggestions that I probably would have had I not learned to just, I guess, calm down. You know what I get to say to them? I get to say, you guys are such good parents to her. Yeah. I get to, the amount of things I don't say to my adult sons are in a family situation versus how I used to. And that's the stuff that we look at. We're not looking at ourselves as bad people. We're looking at ourselves as probably caretakers who have just cared too much. And caring too much sometimes comes with saying too much.
We lose the boundaries.
Boundaries. Again, boundaries. Boundaries around food, boundaries around what I say.
Joni, speak to 4 through 9, 10 through 12, maybe take a minute or
sure. I'll be we have to see in life how we've been acting, how we have been reacting instead of acting, I should say. And I really got in touch with what a control freak I was. And I was controlling because I was nervous. So if I could get every duck in a row, then I would feel better. But I stepped on my fellows' toes and they retaliated time and time again, like it talks about in the big book. So I really, truly had to get in touch with how I showed up. And that was essential. And I got in touch with that with the fourth and fifth step I did after going through CORE. Really got in touch with control. And so now every day I have to do my step 10, 11 inventory where I say, please help me show up. Help me be giving and loving. Let me bring love in the room. Help me not be fearful. And I have to pay attention to control. Am I controlling today? Am I showing up in a bad way, in the way God does not want me to show up? It's simple. It's kind of simple, but we do have to get in touch with how. No, because it's ingrained. We talk about those neural pathways. They're just, we have to learn how to be uncomfortable. We have to talk about it with somebody, and that's all very hard to do.
Yeah, and that's how what we used food before.
Yes,
is to just I'm not going to think about him. I'm going to numb out. I'm not going to think about this conflict. We have to face it directly, and it's not as easy as sometimes the food, but it is a beautiful program.
It with people who are safe, right, Susan? Like others in the program who understand, then it's safe.
Yes. Yeah, it is safe to talk about this stuff. So thank you for addressing that. Our food world is changing. We're seeing Bobby Kennedy, HHS director, coming out with talking about ultra-processed foods. David Kessler on 60 Minutes talking about the food industry. And it is ubiquitous, this food that has all these chemicals in it and ultra-processed, and it's changing. I don't know if you follow the applications to the American Psychiatric Association and the WHO, the ICD. Let's get food addiction in as a substance use disorder like alcohol, and let's get this paid for, and let's pay attention to this and so forth. I would like to hear what each of you think about the food industry and ultra-processed foods, the metabolic disease in our country, obesity, as it relates to food addiction and treatment.
I think there's enough information out there that people are starting. We're still at baby steps, starting to recognize that sugar could be a problem and artificial sweeteners are a problem. And processed food, ultra-processed food, whatever we end up calling it. I think people are starting to make changes, but it's very slow. We love our sugar, right? And the industries are still trying to find ways to make it better. The bliss point that we talk about, right?
Right.
It's so tricky. And then the buy one, get ones. And, it's everywhere. Food is everywhere. And it's a social thing. It's so hard. This is a tough disorder. It's just
It is.
tough.
It's not like smoking where you say, I don't need it.
Right. Or alcohol. You could put it down with drugs. This is really tricky. So I think that's why I very much believe in sustainable recovery, where maybe you're going to make a mistake, but don't go in the ditch. Just let's get back, connect again. Don't leave. Yeah.
And we're not perfect. We don't do it perfectly. None of us.
No.
You just have to okay, today is a new day. I'm going to do this differently better. Right.
Bert, our founder, talks about a bowling alley, right? And you want it to go straight down the middle. Sometimes it's going to waver like this, but we try to get that ball down the middle. And I think that's right. That's sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Nancy, what would you say about this food industry and what's going on?
So I would say that I think we could probably ask any elementary school teacher to talk about the effects of sugar, and we could agree it's a drug, because they're all going to talk about what the day after Halloween, right? Feels like, and so food is a drug, and that doesn't mean everybody's addicted to it, but it has an effect. It has an addictive effect for some people, for a lot of people. And I do think that we do talk at CORE about how to read food labels, how to look for the ways that manufacturers and food companies are labeling things, so that if it says no sugar, we're going to see that and buy it, but there could possibly be a different form of sugar in there. And so it's I just think it's an epidemic, really. And I really happy that we're addressing it from the higher levels of, the food guide pyramid just changing is brilliant. Really happy about that. I think we're kind of, you can hearken it back to that big book and those pioneers of trying to do this by educating, by doing it ourselves, by recognizing it, and by understanding that it is a thing. I can't tell you how many times when you say food addiction, I've had people just
Right. Yeah.
Right. And for some of us, we can't even be at the bottom of the pyramid. It just has to be out if you're a real food.
Right. Out, whether it's M&Ms or pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody's abstinence looks different. Yours might look different than mine, but we know what causes us to eat more once we start, right?
And that's where we have to get gut level honest, right?
Yeah. I think everybody knows someone. You can always say, do you know someone who you see truly struggling? And can you see that this is not something that they want in their life? That if they could stop, they would. So we've not only been that person and had that experience, I think almost anybody can look around in their life at people they care about and say, yeah, and see it from that angle, which might give you a little more empathy, which then leads to understanding.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Robert Lustig, who we've hosted on this program, you probably know him, he said a couple of things that I've heard there are more, but somewhere around 260 to 300 names for sugar that are deceptive on labels. And the most important thing he said was sugar is not a food. We do not need sugar. It is not a food. It's an additive to foods. And so I think we're going to get there. So as we close out here, I want to let people know how to find you. We'll talk about your website. This has been great. Thank you for joining me. Somebody might be out there listening that thinks they're broken. They can't control their eating. They go home, shut the blinds, and sit on the couch, watch TV, and just start eating, for a couple of hours, not know how to stop. Don't want to tell anybody, but unless they're binging, we wear this disease, right? So we're carrying it around. And so what would you say to someone listening, either with obesity or not, it's not about the weight, that feels out of control with food and is so focused on what they're eating, they're not eating, they're overweight, whatever. What would you say to them if they feel desperate and hopeless?
I would say go to the COR website, cormn.org. There are stories on there that you can read. Yeah. There's some pictures and some people that are featured, and then you can also go to the press and you can drop down and read so many of the recovery stories of people that have gone through, and you're going to see it. That words are infinite and how they can be expressed, and so read a couple of them and see where you can connect with what they're saying. Call me. Give me a call. You can email me, certainly, but call me. My number is on there. If I don't answer, I'll get back to you, leave a message, and we can talk about it. The beautiful thing about COR being a nonprofit and our generous founder, Bert Nordstrand, is that I don't have the need to high pressure anybody. I will always say, think about it. Think about it and see if this feels right. I can invite them to that Zoom group that we have on Sunday nights where we usually have a speaker. And I can say, come on into that Zoom group and give a listen, see what it feels like. See if you can connect. I would say that at COR Retreat, that's one of the blessings that we have is that Bert is he wants people to find recovery from food. And so just take a look, do some reading, give me a call if you want. And like I said, we can even invite you in for a little taste of freedom.
And I would say you don't have to live this way anymore. We know how much it hurts. Consider it. Consider doing this for yourself.
Yeah, there is a solution. And
there is a solution.
So, hey, thanks for joining me today. Again, your website is cormn.org is how to find you, and call Nancy and set up a phone meeting or a Zoom meeting. But yeah, you guys got it. You've got it. I can tell. So thanks for joining me today. Esther's going to love it. Thank you for listening to the Food Addiction Podcast. We hope you both enjoyed the episode and learned more about how food addiction is recognized and treated. Please rate and write a review on this podcast and share it with others. If you or someone you know is suffering from the disease of food addiction, there is a solution with trained professionals at the InFact School. You can become a food addiction informed and certified as a food addiction professional, as well as receive your own treatment through the various training, certification, and treatment programs offered at the InFact School. Go to infactschool.com, that's INFACT school.com, to learn more.